What is up, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Somewhat Sports Podcast. My name is Chris, and I am joined by two goats, if you will, in the sports industry, sports broadcast industry, sports analysis industry, anything you could think of. They're the goats of Jurg and Dame. How are we today?
Pretty good, pretty good. Just got off of work, started my new job a couple days ago, so that's fun, boys. But I'm back here doing what I love to do. Love doing the show with you guys, and of course, been pushing it the entire time. The Somewhat Sports Summer of 2021. It might be coming to an end, but that doesn't mean anything is stopping here. We keep rolling, boys.
Dame, top that.
I can't top that, but I am doing fantastic as always. Little devastating news with the Jets front that we're not going to talk about because it's too fresh. But other than that, I'm doing great.
That is just spectacular. Yeah, so this week is a pretty stacked week in terms of news. We got news across most of the sports, I think, besides baseball actually. So we got a star-studded, action-packed episode that we're all gonna cover. It's gonna be great, and like we always do, we're gonna start off with the best. Jurg, talk to me. I know you got some NHL news. What do we got?
Yeah, so essentially we are pretty deep into the offseason now. We're just waiting for the regular season to come back to us. Well, the preseason as well, technically. But we all know where the bread and butter of sports is. It's going to be the regular season coming back eventually in October. So until then, the NHL news is really going to be few and far between in terms of when we get to talk about it on the show. But what I will be doing at least is provide the last little bit of news that is worth talking about because while most of the contracts have been signed, trades have been made, stuff like that, that doesn't mean that everyone is happy in the hockey world. So I'm just going to get straight to it. The biggest news around the league that has still yet to happen is regarding two of the young stars in the league. Now, technically, I could also mention the Vancouver Canucks, but I feel like I need to give it another week or two before mentioning what's going on with Vancouver and that bleep show that's going up north of the border. Let's focus on the good old US of A and two of the coldest states there, ironically enough, still. I'm starting with the Minnesota Wild. They have still yet to reach a contract extension with young star forward. I can't say superstar. He only just came off his rookie season, but what a rookie season it was. Kirill Kaprizov. Him and the Wild still have yet to agree to a proper contract extension with each other. There's been rumors that allegedly the Wild are prepared to offer him, their real offer now to try to, get him back on the team. But obviously, until that happens, and sight unseen, we still need to wonder like what is going to happen there. The reason why I bring it up is because within the last week and a half or so, it was officially said that the CSKA Moscow team of the Continental Hockey League, the top league in Russia, offered Kaprizov a 1-year deal worth at least $10 million. And that deal is essentially just based off of the idea of if the Wild do not reach an extension with Kaprizov, he has every right to, not just stay and wait around. He can go to the KHL and play there. The Wild, I got to say, it's been pretty crazy the fact that they haven't extended the young star yet. He set their rookie goals scored record for last season. I believe their rookie points record as well. And, he was just a dynamo to the team. Yes, all around the team was better last season compared to some previous years. Like, they actually looked like a quality team. They challenged the Vegas Golden Knights in round one. Like, it looked like they were the definitive third best team in their division last year. And it looked like they actually could have challenged Colorado and Vegas, which they inevitably did when they came up against Vegas. It took them until Game 7 before they fell in that series. So for the Wild to be that good, the fact that Kaprizov, his future is still up in the air like this, that's not a good sign. GM Billy Guerin, like this is going to be the key part of his tenure. Can they retain Kaprizov? So, and I think I mentioned this on an earlier episode, but I'll say it again. The holdup is the fact that Kaprizov wants more of like a bridge deal. He doesn't want to sign long-term right now. Earlier on, it was said that Minnesota wanted to, but now I think things are shifting. I think Minnesota has finally understood that they're likely going to need to just work out a bridge deal with the kid. And I want to believe that'll happen because I'm a big NHL guy. I want good NHL news. I want the league to have good stuff happen. And I think overall, it'd be good if Minnesota retains the kid. I hope they will. I think they will. It's just all about make the offer, boys, and let's get things done with. But speaking of doing right by stars, hopefully, that is what everyone is pointing at the Buffalo Sabres for. They are continuing to just absolutely fumble the whole Jack Eichel situation. I'm going to give the basic rundown is that I've mentioned this a couple times on the show now, but Jack Eichel, the star/superstar, some people's eyes, forward of the Buffalo Sabres, does want to leave the team. They have been a bleep show for about 15 years now, but especially in his tenure, they just keep getting worse somehow. Players are traded to them, the players' production declines. Once players leave the team, players do better. They are the worst possible version you could be of a sports team. Honestly, they are the Cleveland Cavaliers or the New York Knicks of the NHL. They really, really are. And I say that to make you guys understand like just how bad this team has been for quite a while now. So the whole idea has been, when is Jack Eichel going to get traded? And months ago I mentioned that there was a list of teams before the draft, and then a while ago there was also a report saying that like he could have been traded at the draft, but nothing materialized. Buffalo still has a high asking price for him, and all that's being figured out as we speak, hopefully. But the big news is the fact that a holdup that's likely scaring some teams off is the fact that Jack Eichel needs surgery, right? He does need surgery on, I believe it is his neck or his back, uh, in order to get back into true and proper playing shape again, And the problem is that the Buffalo Sabres are not approving for him to, get a second look and get a surgery, apparently. From everything I've been understanding, the team is not willing to give the okay on him to get the surgery, despite the fact that this is a big hangup as to why that he hasn't been traded yet. So the fact that the Buffalo Sabres are doing this to him, it's absolute garbage. The organization has been disappointed for a while, and honestly, like a situation of how low can you go, this is probably one of the lowest things possible. There was a situation kind of like this, not last season, maybe the year before, with Kelechi Osemele with the Jets, where he got a second opinion without team permission and got a surgery because they didn't want to diagnose the fact that his shoulder was completely screwed and needed surgery. This is a similar situation, except in this case, they're just point blank denying him a chance to get the surgery for him to actually get into shape. And as a result, this is, I don't want to say screwing them, because obviously, like, most people would probably prefer to keep the star forward, but obviously he's not happy there. He wants to leave. It was mentioned earlier, I think it was reported that him and, his personal contact with the team ran out months ago. Like, he does not want to be talking to them, and nor should he at this point. So I really hope all that gets solved and settled. He deserves it straight up for having to deal with that garbage organization for this long, the dumpster fire they are. And I'm just honestly kind of like with Kaprizov, we're waiting for a contract. We're still waiting on the Eichel deal, but we're just waiting on Buffalo to do the right thing. One last thing to do right by their star. Let him get the surgery. Let everything take its course, and then finally things could get going. And yes, of course, there may be some risk with a team acquiring him, but at the same time, if you get him, you have your doctors look at him, work with him after the surgery. There's potential where he could still be a pretty good player, and that's a risk that you should be willing to take if you're a team that, obviously a team acquiring Eichel thinks that they could go all in. And sometimes if you want to go all in, you have to take risks, right? So that's on the trade front of that, and that's the hockey front. But obviously just off the ice, this is an embarrassment by the Buffalo Sabres. It's not a shock because there have been several embarrassing stories regarding the NHL over the last couple months that's just been disappointing. And unlike the rest of them, I hope this one can actually I hope this one can actually get resolved properly, unlike the other ones, and we have an end to this whole saga, and we can all just move on. So that is the latest news on the NHL front. Any updates on these situations or anything else major that happens within the sport will be talked about in future weeks. I guess maybe technically I'm not going to go in depth with it, but apparently the Arizona Coyotes may get kicked out of their arena in like the next year or two, which would be highly entertaining. But at the same time, like that story just broke today. I don't have all the full details and reports on it, so I'm gonna wait a little bit before I really dive into that situation. But this offseason is just wild. One star player may go to Russia, boys. One star player is waiting to go under the knife by his team, and a whole team might be actually relocating very soon. So what a heck of an offseason the NHL is having, huh?
I mean, if you're covering a Jurg, then I'm just gonna believe it. I'm gonna take your word for it. Yeah. So that's NHL land covered by ours truly, the goat Jurg, and now we move on over to the NBA, where a couple of trades have occurred and a couple of schedules have been released. Jurg, did they release all of the team schedules or just like opening day and Christmas?
Yeah, I think it's just the big ones. I don't think the league, they don't release the team schedules. The teams do it by themselves. So I think the team
All right.
schedules will be coming within like the coming weeks.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, but before we get on to Christmas Day schedule talk, we'll talk about some trades that occurred. The Clippers and the Memphis Grizzlies have traded with each other. The Grizzlies are trading Eric Bledsoe, who they acquired with Steven Adams from New Orleans, They trade him to the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Los Angeles Clippers trade Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo to the Grizzlies. So this received, I think every trade, every move that the Clippers have done the last few weeks, have been very polarizing to say the least. I thought about it. I'm like, oh, they traded Rondo. They traded 2 second rounders for Rondo in the in the near the trade deadline.
And Lou Williams.
Yeah, oh right. So they trade Lou Williams and 2 second rounders for Rondo. They trade him and they trade Patrick Beverley for Bledsoe. Now I know Bledsoe has been very underwhelming the last few years, especially in New Orleans. I do think he's someone that needed a change of scenery. I think Ty Lue will be good for him, and I think he actually wants to play on a team like the Clippers. So I think this is good for Eric Bledsoe. We all suspect that Kawhi Leonard will be out for the season. Clippers were very quiet during free agency. So they make this move. They get a scoring point guard. They re-sign Reggie Jackson. So it was weird because it's just like they're sacrificing a lot of their point guard depth for essentially another player that plays pretty similar to Reggie Jackson. I don't know if you guys agree with me, in my opinion at least. But they traded for a scorer. I don't necessarily know why they made this trade. I don't know how much Bledsoe really does for them. I think because he's scoring off the bench, and maybe that's like where their primary reason for this is that they just need to like stack up with scores because of like the absence of Kawhi. I did read though that because of this trade, because of unloading Beverly and Rondo, and I think this might be the big reason for it, they shaved off $30 million in tax. So I think that's actually pretty huge. I didn't know it was a problem for Steve Ballmer, who's like rich as hell. So I don't know if I like the fit with Bledsoe. I don't know. I don't think he's gonna start. But again, it's Clippers. They have not been really interested in like fit in terms of like their players. I think they're kind of following the model they've been following the last few years, which is like hoarding these like good individual talents instead of just like talents that fit well with like Paul George and Kawhi. So I mean, it's a good piece off the bench. It was just a little questionable, to be honest. I don't know if I could make a judgment on it. I just think uh, you got rid of a lot for Rondo, and then you just let go of him. Beverly, I get, kind of, even though he kind of fit that Clippers culture since the beginning. But I don't know. The defense, they've sacrificed a lot of defense for it, for Bledsoe. So if they think Bledsoe is like the savior, or at least like they're satisfied with Jackson and Bledsoe, I mean, all good for you. But I just don't know if he's a decent solution, especially when Kawhi's going to be out. I'm gonna go to you, Dame. What do you think about this trade? I know you were pretty vocal on Twitter about this.
Yeah, we all know I'm not the biggest Clipper fan. So when I did see this trade go down, I was pretty excited about it because although I don't think Patrick Beverley is that good of a basketball player, and I just think he, like Russell Westbrook say, he just runs around and yells. Um, I do think he was very important to the Clippers' identity of like that kind of like tough grittiness, and for them to trade him away, I don't know why they did it for a guy like Eric Bledsoe, who realistically, is he really better than Patrick Beverley? I don't think so. Maybe early on in his career, before the injuries and stuff, yeah. But when I look at it now, I think they got worse with this trade. Sure, they saved a couple bucks, but like you said, Steve Ballmer, like one of the richest owners, if not the richest owner, I'm not sure, in the entire NBA. Like, you shouldn't be making trades that doesn't make your team better based off a couple dollars. Um, but yeah, like I said, like I thought Patrick Beverley was very vital to their identity. I don't know what Eric Bledsoe really brings to their team. He's not really an elite shooter. He's not a distributor. And like you said, they did get rid of Rondo. I know they gave up a lot for him at the deadline, and he didn't really work out with the Clippers. But you don't get Rondo for regular season; you really get him for the postseason, and they did pretty good. I'm not saying it's because of Rondo, but overall they did pretty good in the postseason without Kawhi. Like if Kawhi was healthy, they probably would have made it all the way to the championship, if not win the entire thing. Um, but overall, like you said with the Clippers, like this, all any trade they make hasn't really looked good, and this is just another example of that.
Jurg?
So actually, unlike a lot of other people, I don't hate this deal for the Clippers. I honestly don't. Yeah, losing Rondo is kind of tough because Rondo he brings that veteran presence to a team, leader, champion, all that, right? Like I'm not going to deny that Rajon Rondo helps a team, but at the same time you got to look at it for the Clippers in the playoffs. And a somewhat limited role. It's the least amount of minutes per game he ever played, so that's part of the issue. But in just under 17 minutes a night in the playoffs, he was only shot 34% from the field. He only scored 4.2 points per game, and his assists were like 3.8. So realistically, yes, while Rondo does bring a lot, it was in the situation where Tyronn Lue didn't use him. Was it he didn't use him well? He didn't use him enough? Whatever argument you want to make, it just didn't work. So I don't fully blame the fact that they wanted to trade him. Now, here's the thing with Pat Beverly. I understand the idea of fitting a team's culture, a makeup, stuff like that. I really do. But just in terms of talent, like Pat Beverly's to me has been an overrated defender for a long time. I don't think he's that good of a defensive player. I just don't. I think he hacks a lot. I
He's a
think
pest.
yeah, but he's not even the good kind of pest. To me, he's just not. Like I have never seen anyone say to Pat Beverly like, yeah, he's annoying, but dang, he's a really good defender. Like he gave me some tough matchups. Like they said that about Raja Bell, who was a pest. Like but Kobe gave Raja Bell all the respect in the world. Tony Allen was the same thing. Obviously, offensively was a different story, but defensively, like Tony Allen challenged people. Like he would even go up against KD. Pat Beverly is a pest, but he's not even that good of a defender. He's just not. So to me, I didn't mind getting rid of him. And I like the Bledsoe acquisition a good bit. I actually do. We're at the very end of his contract, so I think we're relatively fine in terms of that end. And obviously, saving that little bit of time. I know Steve Ballmer can afford it. Obviously, majority of these owners can. But while it does save them some tax money, I think Ballmer probably looked at it as, yes, he's saving money, but he thinks he could get more out of Bledsoe than the last stop, which New Orleans, I just don't think it was the right mold for Bledsoe. Like we're talking about how Stan Van Gundy didn't work there, the veteran coach. I don't think he was the right veteran guard there for that team. That it just a clash of styles, a clash of different things. And like we said, New Orleans missing the playoffs last year. I think Bledsoe has been sick and tired for a long time of being on teams that missed the playoffs. Now, yes, he was on Milwaukee recently, and they had some success. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you go from Milwaukee, who was a championship contender, to New Orleans, right? So now he's going back to a team that hopes to be a title contender again, all depending on whenever Kawhi gets back. I think he could actually be relatively valuable. He's a solid defender. He was All NBA defensive second team in 2020, All NBA defensive first team in 2019. He's proven where he could get a couple shots for himself here and there, pass it a handful of times. Like you're not losing anything. To me, you're not losing anything when you go from Pat Beverly to Bledsoe. You're just not. And considering how Rondo performed in the playoffs, how much are you going to lose from that either? So I actually don't hate this at all for the Clippers. I think he's another guy who can maybe whatever role they end up using him in, and that's the key. Like what role are they ultimately going to have him play, whether it be a starter or do they have him come off the bench? Personally, I think Reggie Jackson should be like the high minutes guard off the bench, in my opinion. But Bledsoe and Paul George and Kawhi, that's not a bad defensive trio right there. It really isn't. Like Bledsoe is still fundamentally sound. He understands because he's played with a star recently. Giannis. He understands what his role is. He can attack. He can slash way better than what Rondo and Beverly could do. Yes, his 3-point shot leaves a lot to be desired, but I actually think when you consider some of the things on this team, there's still some shooting there. Paul George could shoot. Kawhi could shoot. He doesn't do it a lot, but Terrence Mann had the game against the Utah Jazz where he hit, like it was the last game of the series where he had all those threes. Like there's some shooting there where he doesn't necessarily like the shot doesn't need to be the first thing, like just a guy to attack. I like Bledsoe for this team a lot more than honestly like keeping Pat Bev. Maybe my only thing I can understand is if you think Rondo could have made a bigger impact in year 2 with the team, or technically year 1.5, but year 2 with them, like after that, I get that. I really do. And maybe that's the one thing I think is a loss for the Clippers here. But if we're talking about the main players, which is Pat Bev, who we're going to get to again in a moment here, and Bledsoe, it's a W for the Clippers. I got rid of Pat Beverly. Thank you.
All right, I see we feel very strongly about this. Very opposite side of two opposite sides of the spectrum, and then one in the middle. Yeah, I don't know. I think Rondo's intelligence and IQ was very valuable in the playoffs, but I feel like sometimes, and I think this was apparent when Kawhi went out. Like you need a guy that could just get a bucket. And that like they lack that a lot. It showed a lot during the Sun series, right? It was like there were times where like the offense was a bit stagnant, and I think that's where Bledsoe could help. So I understand. Like I don't think the move is awful, like a lot of people are saying it is. I'm not too sold on it. Maybe it's because like I think I'm kind of attaching it too much to like how much they gave up for Rondo. But yeah, I mean Patrick Beverly does fit the culture, but again, I mean there were games where he showed up in the playoffs, even though like he kind of got benched during the Mavericks series because Luka was eating him up. So overall, I'm not gonna say it's a win or a loss yet. It's something that you have to wait and see, which is essentially like a cop out answer. But yeah, I don't hate this move, but I don't love it. Yeah, I think too many people are like too quick to write it off. Also, this could be like a motivating factor for Bledsoe. I'm pretty sure he was with the Clippers at one point, I assume, right?
Yeah, it was the first team in his career, and I forget what year it was, but there was a playoff series like during the Lob City years where it was the Clippers against the OKC Thunder, and
Yeah.
Bledsoe played a massive part. I think it was Game 4 where the Clippers were down 2-1. They were down in the fourth by like double digits, and Bledsoe and Chris Paul played a massive role in them coming back, winning that game, and tying up the series at 2 apiece. So Eric Bledsoe, like he has history with the Clippers, and they were the ones that traded him to Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken. Uh,
Or
yeah,
OKC, was it?
no, maybe it was a 3-team deal. But like aside from that, like Eric Bledsoe was traded from the Clippers. He was there at the start of his career, so there is some history there. And like you said, like I get why some people may be iffy on it, but compared to Pat Beverly and Rondo, like Bledsoe can create a shot on some possessions. The
Yeah.
thing is, he doesn't always need to, like because of Paul George and Kawhi being there. But again, he understands his role. He just played with Giannis, the 2-time MVP and Finals MVP. Like he's not going to think of himself the star when he's got PG and Kawhi next to him. So I don't think you have to worry about that. Not saying Pat Bev did, but and by the way, if anyone is concerned about losing that physical defender, well, you have a Morris brother there. I don't need
Well,
two people that'll
also,
give me the fouls.
they did sign Justice Winslow, who I think is pretty underrated in my opinion. Now he's not gonna like get you over the hump, but he's a pretty good defender when he actually locks in. I just think
Oh
everyone
yeah.
forgot about him because he's always hurt all the time.
A defensive lineup if fully healthy of Bledsoe, Paul George, Justice, and Kawhi. Whew, like
Yeah,
there's some potential there.
that's tough. That's tough. Yeah. Well, we move on over to a second trade that occurred that included Pat Beverly. So the Memphis Grizzlies are trading Patrick Beverly to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Jarrett Culver and Juan Hernan Gomez. Um, I absolutely love this trade for the Memphis Grizzlies. I think Jarrett Culver, he's been pretty underwhelming in his whole NBA career. Like I know a lot of people were high on him, coming out of college and when he entered the draft. Um, he went to Minnesota. I just don't think he found his place there. Some of it is his. I mean, a lot could be his fault as well. But I just think he didn't fit there. Minnesota's Minnesota, so who knows? But I think the Grizzlies are a good rehabilitation location for him because first of all, I think the Grizzlies' developmental staff is better. They're obviously a winning. I think the Grizzlies are a like winning culture. They haven't won a lot, but they have like elements of a winning culture. And like I think they're on the come up. They drafted Zaire Williams. They have Kyle Anderson. Kyle Anderson, he's not obviously your guy going forward. And now you get Jared Culver. I think they have a lot of options in terms of like the wing position, which is something they were, lacking in. Like that was the one position they were kind of like iffy on. So I think with Jared Culver there, he adds an element of 3-and-D shooting, which is something that the Grizzlies I think are looking to add, or they kind of have that. So I think they're strengthening that aspect to their play style. So I think this is perfect for them. I think it's perfect for him. He needed a change of scenery. He's going to play with John Morant, who's going to find him. I still have faith in him. I really do. Again, change of scenery could sometimes be extremely important, and I think it's going to be for him. And Juan Hernan Gomez, another 3-point shooter. So the Grizzlies had some like shooting here. I think he could play the small ball four. Look, no one's gonna go to. It's hard to see free agents going to Memphis. So they make these like within the margin moves that like really help them, man. And I think this move in particular helped them. You keep Rondo because again, Rondo will help out John Morant in terms of just like IQ and just to develop as a pure point guard. Like John Moran doesn't really need that much help, but like when you have one of the most smartest players to ever play the game next to you, can't hurt obviously. So you keep him. You add 3-and-D players. I think this is a huge win for the Grizzlies. Beverly to the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think he adds that level of toughness that they need. You guys obviously don't think he's. I mean, you guys think he's an overrated defender, but I think he does bring an element of defense that the Wolves like desperately need, to be honest. And the Wolves are like in a weird spot. They're like not even in purgatory. They're like below that. They don't have a lot of time left, I feel like, with Cat because I think he's gonna be on the move if they don't win soon. This is my personal prediction, but I think Beverly's gonna be good for them. I don't necessarily know how D'Angelo Russell, Cat, or I mean Anthony Edwards I could see like adapting well, but I don't know how they're gonna feel when like Beverly's like, doing his thing in practice because I mean there's history and Jurg knows this with Cat and like alpha male personalities on the team not meshing well. But yeah, I think again Beverly is what the Wolves need. I just don't know how the Wolves are going to respond. They should respond well because they again I feel like they're on the clock and they're in the Western Conference. A+ for the Memphis Grizzlies, and then I'm gonna give for the Patrick Beverly move. I mean, you weren't doing anything with Jared Culver, and he was gonna need to be paid soon. And also, I think they re-signed Hernan Gomez, so you get him off the books. And then I don't know how many years Beverly has left. He might have one. He might have 1 year left. But for a rental, I think I'll give him an A. I'll give him an A for that move, even though it's like a small minor move. I'll give him an A. So, Dame, what do we feel about this?
For both teams, I actually like it a lot. Starting with the Grizzlies, I think they got more for Patrick Beverly alone than the Clippers did. I like Jared Culver a lot. I know he hasn't really lived up to his draft hype when he came out, but I do still think there's a lot of potential there. And adding him to, I know I mentioned this a couple podcasts ago, or like the last podcast. Like, I think it's really important for young developing teams to have like the kind of like the same age guys so they could grow together and be on the same timeline. And that's what I think Jared Culver is to the Grizzlies. As you mentioned as well, they did keep Rajon Rondo. That's going to be very important for John Moran's development. Maybe they buy him out because Rondo doesn't want to be in a rebuilding situation or something like that. But personally, I hope they don't, because I do think John Moran can learn a lot from him and really help his development to become a smarter player. Because sometimes we see John Moran can be a little stupid with this kind of stuff he does. So hopefully Rondo can help him with these things and help him to become a better playmaker as well. But yeah, Jared Culver, I think, is a great pickup for them. Maybe he lives up to his potential, maybe he doesn't, but just to have him there and bring him into that young culture they do have is very important. As for the Timberwolves, getting Patrick Beverly, I think, is really important for them too, because they do need that level of toughness. I think all their guys their stars are soft. D'Lo's soft, Karl-Anthony Towns is soft. Those are your main pieces. Anthony Edwards just doesn't care, so I'm not gonna really say he's soft. But your two stars with D'Lo and Cat are definitely kind of soft. So hopefully, bringing a guy like Patrick Beverly will kind of toughen them up. I don't know if they're gonna respond well to it. I know Cat didn't respond well to Jimmy Butler's toughness, so I don't know if that's gonna be a little bit of a problem there, and that'll lead to Beverly being traded again or bought out or something like that. But if they can make it work and Beverly won't take it over the top, and Karl-Anthony Towns can kind of man up and take that toughness to really help build himself, I think it'll be very good for the Timberwolves as well.
I just like to me it's funny the potential idea that like, wouldn't it just be funny, boys, if Pat Beverly were to get traded again relatively soon? Like, I know it wouldn't happen.
It could happen. It could happen.
Like, I just like the idea. And by the way, Chris, you are right. Beverly does have just 1 year left on his contract. That's the final year. Like the the idea that they could move him and they could even get back more for him than the Clippers did would just be funny to me. I'm just saying that on the front end, it would be. No, I think so. Here's where it's good for both teams. I think, like you guys have said with Memphis, I just think they need to accumulate like young talent where they could do some work with. That's probably why they drafted Zaire Williams. They made a trade up late in the first round to acquire another young prospect, and now this trade to get Jared Culver. I like it. Like you guys have said, I think Culver, it was tough in Minnesota. He had a decent rookie season where he had like some decent performances, but then year two, he was injured a lot. And then with Anthony Edwards being at the 2, you can't really play Culver at the 3 and D'Lo's there. It just got super crowded, not enough space for him. I think now he gets to go to Memphis. If he gets a chance to start, like him and Ja could be interesting. I think Ja being the slasher, Culver, he had a good mid-range game coming in. I think his 3-point shot is still solid. So it's just about opportunity for some young players. And for Culver, like this could be, like Chris said, like a rehabilitation for him, like a revitalization, an opportunity for him to prove that he can, step on an NBA court and contribute. So we'll see how it works for him. In regards to the Pat Beverly to Minnesota, like you guys have said, like here's my thing with Pat Bev. Yes, I do think he's an overrated defender, but I just think like a guy like that, here's my thing. It wears over time. Someone like that constantly in the locker room. Like things do have to change. And that's why I don't think for the Clippers it's such a big loss, because you still have a tough guy there in Morris, like who could be that, guy to, talk a little bit of trash. And you're getting Bledsoe in to help with the defense. You don't have anyone like that in Minnesota. And kind of like you guys have pointed to, Cat and D'Lo specifically. Anthony Edwards is, he's a young kid. I'm going to let him slide. But Cat and D'Lo, when was the last time they were challenged? like by a teammate in practice. And I don't mean like bucket for bucket. I mean make them work, push them around a little bit, toughen them up. For D'Lo, the last person that probably did that to him was Kobe in his rookie year, and for Cat, the last person that did that, well, like you guys have said, Jimmy taught him a few lessons. Hopefully, that now Cat will carry with him. But ultimately, this kind of does feel like a final chance for the Minnesota Timberwolves the next 2 years. Their clock is ticking, so they understand that they need to do something. And kind of like with Memphis, Chris, Minnesota can't really bring in people either. Like they need to make trades like this, whether it be that trade that they swung for D'Lo, where they trade a couple first round picks, or this deal now for Beverly that they hope can start to create things. Because like you said, Chris, Memphis does have the aspects of winning culture there. They compete for the playoffs. They don't outwardly tank. Ja comes in, and year one, they're in the play-in, almost make it to the playoffs. Year two, they made the playoffs by winning in the play-in. Like the changes that have happened to that organization very quickly, like that shows that there's winning there. They want to win. They want to do well. And I think for young team, they need to have that. The young players need to have something to play for, and so that's why I think this is good for Memphis. For Minnesota, you can't say that about them. Even when they made the playoffs, like yes, Jimmy tried to do something, and we saw how they reacted. So I think at the end of the day, it's a make or break move by Minnesota that they hope pays off. They're not going to be a playoff team necessarily. I don't think they will, even with D'Lo and Cat healthy. Again, like Pat Bev can only do so much with the potential help he could do defensively. But this should be a move that Minnesota should be contending better for that play-in spot. Like they should not be the 15th seed in the West next season. Like they need to be the 11th seed, heck, even higher, maybe 9 or 10, all things depending. But yeah, I do like the trade overall for both. But man, to me, Memphis did such a good job on these deals. They really did. Like if you have to give one defined winner from all these trades, I would give it to Memphis.
Dude, they're I think they're one of the best organizations in the NBA, man. Rebuilding, but at the same time they're also competing. They're getting playoff experience, man, and they have their franchise player and a really good coach. So I think they're on the come up. But you're right, Jurg. I feel like Minnesota on paper should and I understand there's been injuries this last season. It's been hell, especially for Karl Anthony Towns. I'll let last season slide, but on paper they should be a lot better than what than what they are. Um, Again, you have D'Lo, you have Cat. The connection should already be there in terms of chemistry. Malik Beasley, I think, is a very good player. Anthony Edwards, of course, I think he was just below LaMelo Ball in terms of like rookie of the year. And now you get Patrick Beverly. It's just there's a lot of players. Again, it's like they're like a very in terms of like roster construction. It's very like Clippers light in terms of like let's accumulate all the talent we can without really like finding complementary players for D'Lo and Cat because I'm assuming those are the two cornerstones. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they'll do it, but I was reading maybe within the grapevines that this could be. I mean, it's Beverly, and how much does Beverly really help? But like the Wolves have been like, from what I've read, they're desperately trying to like look for like a trade partner for possibly Ben Simmons, and we talked about that. Like, I don't know how you're gonna get Ben Simmons, without giving up an Anthony Edwards, right? If Patrick Beverly's like your main piece, it's just not gonna happen. So
Well,
I
you
don't know.
also like with bringing up Simmons, Chris. Jarrett Culver was that young two guard that maybe if you unearth something in him, you could do, and you just
Yeah,
traded him. Like, what young talent is left that team would actually be willing to deal? Like a Kogi?
Josh Okogie.
Like, yeah, Kogi's nice. Like, I actually do like him personally,
Yeah,
but
Okogie's really good,
still,
but he's not a Ben Simmons trade, chip that like brings it over the
agreed.
top.
And like we kind of noted too, like they also can't really give up their first round picks because this is not a team that should be confident that like you
Yeah.
said they were below being in purgatory, Chris. They're like one of the they're one of the rings in Dante's Inferno. Like that's what
Woo.
they are. They're it's not good there in Minnesota. It may be a cold place, but that organization is essentially hell on earth the last couple seasons. I don't know what the heck they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I like their coach. I actually like Chris Finch a lot too. But yeah, I don't. Again, they should be better. I also don't know if Ben Simmons could bring them over the top. So, gold medal Grizzlies, silver medal Minnesota Timberwolves, and then bronze medal, I guess, the Los Angeles Clippers. Yeah. So I don't have anything else to say about that. We move on over to some Christmas games. That's right. The Christmas game schedule is leaked, and I will go one by one. To start off, of course, in order. Noon game. Atlanta Hawks will be playing the New York Knicks. This will be at MSG. Oh man, so some playoff revenge possibly for the Knicks. We'll see how that goes. But Trae Young, the villain of the NBA, is gonna go to the most brutal crowd again on Christmas. At 2:30, we got the Boston Celtics at the Milwaukee Bucks. At 5 o'clock, we got the Golden State Warriors at the Phoenix Suns. At 8 o'clock p.m., the Brooklyn Nets at the Los Angeles Lakers. That's right, the main event. That's Stone Cold versus The Rock. And then at 10:30 p.m., we got the Mavericks at the Jazz. I'm gonna go in terms of most exciting games. Obviously the Nets and the Lakers. That's one. At two, I'm gonna put the Knicks and the Hawks. I just think because of like everything that transpired in the playoffs, storyline there, Trae Young's hatred, the Knicks having Kemba Walker and adding Evan Fournier, making some good offseason moves. It's gonna be. I feel like it's gonna be competitive. And again, the storylines are there, and of course the Garden crowd. Hopefully, things don't trend upwards in terms of like how the world's going, and we could actually have like a decent amount of fans to that game, because I do think that will add an element to it. And then surprise, I really like this game. The Warriors and the Suns. Hopefully Clay will be back by then. But again, I think the Warriors got better. They drafted Kuminga and Moody. Iguodala came back. If Klay Thompson does come back, it's going to be a really good game in my opinion. The weak ones, in my opinion, was the Celtics and the Bucks, and then of course the Mavericks and the Jazz. Well, obviously you're gonna have the Bucks in here, but I don't know why are the Celtics on the Christmas Day schedule. They've been a dumpster fire the last 2 years. I think they need to get their shit together. Look, Jason Tatum's Jason Tatum. I get it, but I don't know if I want to see the Celtics in this. I don't think they deserved it. In terms of like the Mavericks and the Jazz, yeah, I guess you want to get Luka in there. I don't know why the Jazz are in here, to be honest. Who the hell wants to watch the Jazz on Christmas? But it's a 10:30 game. This is where people kind of like start to like fade out, and they're just like, if I'm awake, I'll watch it. But Luka is Luka. You want to highlight Luka as much as you want. Some snubs, I think. The Miami Heat definitely were one of them, especially because of the offseason additions and because I have them at such a high tier. Philadelphia Sixers, I don't necessarily know because I don't think Simmons will be there by that time. But I would have personally I would have liked the Miami Heat versus Philadelphia Sixers instead of the Bucks versus the Celtics, or at least the Miami Heat versus Bucks. I think that would have been way more fun. And the Denver Nuggets aren't here. I don't necessarily know if that's a surprise because I think with the absence of Jamal Murray, I don't know if they still think they're like a fun team to watch. So I mean, Jurg, I'll start with you. What do you think of the Christmas Day schedule? And which teams do you think were snubbed out of a schedule? Or like, would you have substituted like one of these teams for like another team, or would you have liked a different game completely?
So just on the schedule itself, like it's fine, it's solid. Like to the point, this is gonna kind of transition into the idea of like other teams. Like look at what the NBA has and why they matched them up. So obviously, I don't need. I know they're not the first game, but right off the top, Brooklyn and LA. Do I really need to go into that much detail with it? We already know why those two are on the schedule. So yes, that game was always going to be made 11 times out of 10 every single day of the week. So the rest of the games, like Hawks Knicks rematch of their playoff series. Um, Trae Young being made a quote unquote villain by New York. He's really only a villain to Knicks fans. No one else considers him a villain, but
Well, I don't know about that, Jurg.
I don't consider him a villain. He's not. To you guys, yes, he is. I won't deny it. But
It's
you guys
no,
made him
he's not a bad dude. He looks like a solid kid. It's his play style that gets me infuriated. For example, all that drawing fouls shit that he does, even though that will be taken away hopefully if the referees don't suck ass.
He's still going to average like 8, 9, 10 free throws a game because he's a guard. Like guards will get there no matter what. So I'm not worried
whatever,
about
bro. He's still a cunt.
So here's where it begins. Like, okay, Milwaukee obviously belongs defending NBA champions. I'm not going to argue it. The champion should always be like part of your highlight days, right? Like in any sport, that's how it should be. The Boston Celtics. Now, here's why they're there. So you have Hawks Knicks. It's a rematch, but the Knicks, even all the years that they were garbage in the league, why were they always there? Marquee franchise. Everyone knows it. It's New York. It's the Knicks. Boom. Boston Celtics are the revered story. Casual, like here's the thing, Christmas Day is made to get casual fans to definitely watch this while they're with their families after they've gotten their presents, to continue the happiness or to get over the sadness of whatever presents you got because you got clothes for like the 5th straight year in a row. Not me personally, I actually love when I get clothes for Christmas. I need more wardrobe. But the Celtics are a marquee franchise. They have all the history, 17 championships and one championship in 2008, even though you could have sworn they won like 5 in a row with how that team talks. Ultimately, like Boston's going to be on there because they have the name value. Golden State and Phoenix, I'm not going to argue with it. One team was in the finals last year. The other team has Steph Curry and was the most recent dynasty in the league. I'm cool with it. And then Dallas and Utah, why is Luka the 10:30 game where people may not watch? This is going to be one of the top 2 to 3 players in the game for the next decade plus for them. Like I just don't understand why they ultimately put him at the 10:30 slot. I know someone has to get it, but I just kind of hate the fact that it's Luka. Really, I hate it.
Yeah, but it's the Mavericks, Jurg.
Yeah, right. And then Utah, they got to give the Mormons something here, so they get the 10:30 ESPN Christmas game. Now, teams that I would switch out. Honestly, like I know people are mentioning it, and look, I appreciate those that realistically come to bat for Miami. I really do. But for myself personally, the things that I would have changed here, and so one of this is what I personally would have made it, and then the other one is I'm shocked the league didn't make this the game. So I would personally think that the Philadelphia 76ers and Bucks would be an interesting game because I think Giannis versus Joel Embiid is something I want to definitively see in a game with some hype. Are we ever going to see it in the playoffs? That's a question to be determined these next couple of years. But at least let's see it on Christmas, and I think JoJo and Giannis going at it, like it would be super cool. And of course, the supporting casts, like what could the Philly supporting cast look like this season? We know what Milwaukee's is. Like, I just think it'd be interesting. The team that broke the championship barrier and got it done, and the team that wants to do that, right? So I think there's some intrigue there. For the 10:30 game, this is where I'm really shocked that they didn't make this. I understand why people are saying Denver should have made it, and I get Jokic was the MVP. I support all Balkans players in the league, so I am very upset that he's not getting highlighted more. But I'm shocked they did not make the 10:30 game Dallas and New Orleans, because the fact that the NBA did not take an opportunity to shoehorn Zion into a Christmas game, I'm surprised. First off, like props to them that they didn't do that for no reason, because we know just based off of merit the Pelicans don't deserve to be there. But the fact that they actually didn't put Zion in this, like it caught me for a surprise. Like, huh, really? Okay, I'm impressed. I really am. So that's what I think. Like, if the schedule could be fixed up, that's what I think it would be. Again, like I said, for myself personally, I think Philly and Milwaukee would make sense. And I'm only putting New Orleans in there because the league would want it to happen. Because Zion versus Luka, like the ultimate outside player in Luka versus the ultimate inside player in the league today in Zion, like just in terms of finesse versus power, 2 young faces, I can't believe they actually didn't go for it. Happy, but I can't believe they didn't.
Bro, it's because the Pelicans suck.
Like, but that's what I'm saying. Like,
you want to put Zion, but like, you're not really pushing him at that point if you're just showing him like eating ass against the Mavericks, bro. It's just like, yeah, he'll do his thing, but like, the Pelicans aren't gonna like do any real damage. I mean, they had their chance against the Heat on Christmas, right? Well, didn't they play on Christmas like last season that just passed?
Did they? I really don't remember.
I think it was. Someone fact check that, but Zion, bro. He's known, man. Like he's known. He's the guy, especially for the youngsters. It's just I don't necessarily know if you could portray, like, yeah, playing on Christmas would be neat, but how, like, I don't think they're going to be portraying him in a positive light, right? If you're just going to show him getting blown out, which I think the Mavericks actually could do against the Pelicans, because I think Luke will just take over. The defense sucks. The Pelicans defense sucks. Like, why bother? Why bother? Like,
I'm just saying, like, Christmas Day is for the casual fans. Like, look, I'm not saying that this should be it. I'm just impressed that the NBA didn't make it this, because,
but even like,
come on, you have to admit, Chris, like the fact that Zion's not in this, like that's a surprise. They made the play-in tournament for Zion. They put him on the. I know 2K decides, but I'm sure the NBA probably said like, hey, put Zion on the cover. They've done everything to push him, and this is for the ultra casual fans to get even more money. Like, you have to admit, there's a little bit surprised they didn't shoehorn it.
I think they've come to their senses, man. And plus, it's the 10:30 game essentially. I don't know. It's just out of the Pelicans, they're a lost cause to me. I just. If you like, and I'm not defending the Jazz by any means, but having a team like the Pelicans instead of them, yeah, there's more market value because like you have Zion, but the Pelicans don't deserve it over the Jazz. Pelicans don't deserve it over a lot of teams, but like, yeah, like again, also the Jazz have a Donovan Mitchell too, who I think is pretty. He's obviously not on Zion levels in terms of just like marketing, but he's a very fun player. So I don't know, man. I'm just glad that they didn't do it. I'm glad that they're not just pushing him down our throats. I think the agenda has been clear for a while now. But yeah, Dame, what are your thoughts on these games?
Um, I like 3 out of 5 of them. So obviously,
Yeah.
like the Knicks and the Hawks, like that's obvious. After last year's playoff series, like you just can't go wrong with that. I do like the Warriors and the Suns. I like the young Suns team and the kind of like the Warriors coming back. Hopefully, like you said, Clay will be back. I think he will. Nets Lakers is a no brainer. Like you just had to do that. The two
Yeah.
games I don't like is Boston Bucks and Mavs Jazz. Obviously, the Bucks should be in there, the defending champs. I just don't like Boston, and it's not like a Knicks thing that I don't like Boston or a New York thing. I just don't think they deserve to be playing Christmas Day, especially against the Bucks. I'd rather see the Heat there after their improved offseason or the 76ers there playing the Bucks, of course. I think those would be better matchups than Boston. I think the Bucks are going to roll over Boston, but that is what it is. And with the Mavs and Jazz, maybe it's just because I'm just not a fan of the Jazz or Utah in general, and I just think that every year is the same story where they are a great regular season team and you just fall out in the playoffs.
Accurate.
But I just would rather see the Mavs play, say, the Nuggets, who I think are a better team than
Mm-hmm.
the Jazz, with Jamal Murray coming back healthy, hopefully, or the Clippers. I know the Clippers is kind of a reoccurring story with the amount of times they play in the playoffs, but I just think that would be a better matchup than the Jazz because all these Mavs Clippers games are great, and just to see it again on Christmas Day would be even better. But my first choice would definitely be the Nuggets with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray coming back, facing against Luka Doncic. But I'm not that mad about the Jazz. I'm probably a little biased about it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna admit that. But definitely, my number one concern is the Boston. Like they just should not be in it. When it comes to the Zion thing, I do agree with Chris that like we get it. Like they're trying to push Zion, but like you just can't keep putting him out there and for a national audience to see him lose and lose and lose because then you're gonna lose those fans that he does have, and they're gonna realize like, is he even that good? Like, do we really want to keep watching him? And then he's gonna lose his popularity like that if you keep putting his bad team and losing team on national TV time and time again.
Yeah, yeah. I also think on the Clippers front, I do agree with you, Dame. But I just think the absence of Kawhi kind of like shot them out of
Yeah,
the
that's
Christmas Day
true.
schedule. I feel like if he was playing, they would have gotten. They probably would have played the Mavericks. I feel like that would have been the 10:30 game. Hopefully this will deliver. Again, I agree with Dame. 60% of these games I'm hyped for. Like maybe the Jazz and the Mavericks will surprise us. That has the elements of an actual good game. I just feel like we're just not into it, um, for good reason, of course. Again, but all these games can't be great. If I get at least two of the look in general, we're still getting the Nets against the Lakers, right? That's the freaking David versus Goliath one that everyone wants to watch. It's the primetime game. If my Knicks beat the Hawks, like, oh, by the way, as like a Knicks fan, we gotta win this game. These are one of those
Oh,
games that like
absolutely.
me, we
Absolutely.
if Trey Young bitches us out on Christmas, he already did it to us in the playoffs. We need to like this is our playoff game. Like we cannot lose to this piece of shit in the freaking on Christmas in New York, especially when we're like a bit better talent wise.
Just to make it clear, like Trey Young is playing Christmas Day because he's playing the Knicks. I know I've seen a
Good
lot of
point,
stuff
Dame.
on Twitter. I know a lot of people are saying the Knicks are only playing Christmas Day because of Trey Young. No, 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 no.
No,
It's the
no.
other way around. He's playing Christmas Day because he's playing at Madison Square Garden. There's a reason they didn't put it in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's a great point, and I'm glad you brought that up, Dave. I'm glad you brought that up because you Hawks fans, you have a reason to cheer. Your team's very good. You have Trae Young, you're a franchise player. Stop it, bro. Like everyone knew Trae Young was good, but now like he has this, he could build off this character because of us now. Like there's a reason why this is at the Garden. No, like no one was caring about that series until like the fans started getting involved, right? And no one like again. I think that series kind of put Trae Young and the Hawks' relevance on the map. They were on the come up because they played really good in the second half of the season, but come on now. Knicks made that game happen. Now we move on over to the NFL where a re-signing occurred. The Seattle Seahawks have re-signed Jamal Adams. 4 years, 70 million, or is it 72 million? Yeah, it's 72 million. Yeah, so the Hawks traded for Jamal Adams last season, I believe, last offseason. They traded him, again, the Jets traded him for a first rounder, a third rounder, a 2022 first rounder. There's a bunch of picks that were involved. But essentially, yeah, they gave up 2 first rounders. I think that's the main story, right, Dame? Is that correct?
Yeah, and that third is important too because they used that third to move up with
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
Seahawks first rounder.
Right. So throughout the whole season, there was talks about like extension talks, all that, and then I think recently there was like reports. I don't necessarily know if they're true or not, but it were reports just like yeah, their talks have stalled because he wants to be paid like a linebacker instead of a safety. Because I think they get paid more. Is that the reason why, guys?
Yeah,
Relatively speaking, yeah.
they were talking about like the franchise tag to put on him, and like the franchise tag usually is you get paid like around the top tier of what the highest paid, like say the highest paid linebacker makes 20 million, like you're in that top tier of your franchise tag if you get paid that. But like the top safety gets paid 15 million, so your franchise tag would be a tad below that. So if
Okay.
he got tagged as a linebacker, he'd be getting paid more on the franchise tag than he would be if he got tagged as a safety.
Okay. Good clarification there, Dame. So yeah, so Jamal Adams, essentially gets paid. Yeah. So there were talks about how there were like a little bit of disagreements. Jamal Adams does seem like that type where he's kind of difficult to communicate with. We definitely saw it with the Jets. I understand the Jets were
Not my
a dumpster.
problem.
Yeah, yeah, we could talk about that or a dumpster fire of an organization. At least back then, things are looking up now. But yeah, Adams looks a little bit like a diva. I'm not gonna lie. But again, I think when you make that trade, and especially when you think about like what the Seahawks had to give up to get him, you essentially had to re-sign him, right? When we get to the actual number, again, I don't know football as much as you guys do. I feel like this may be an overpay, especially for a safety, an overrated safety. I might say. I'm not saying that because he was kind of a dickhead. There are other O line members that are trying to address their contract situations that I think should be of focus even more than Jamal Adams, in my opinion. Especially when Russell Wilson kind of voices concerns about the O line. I don't necessarily know if like Adams brings you over the like he's not someone that like brings you over the top, right? The Hawks are kind of they're good. They're not Super Bowl contenders good, right? And for like this is kind of like a move in which like it's a play like this is a move in which you re-sign a player that you think okay we need to lock him up because we're going to compete now. And yeah, like the Hawks, you're gonna have Russell Wilson, you have DK Metcalf, you have Tyler Lockett, so they're automatically always going to be good to really good. I just don't think that. I mean, they're locking up their team now that and which they can't make a lot of moves, especially after that because they traded a lot for him. They're making a lot of moves that kind of like seals them, like they kind of caps their ceiling, right? And I think with Russell Wilson, because everything that transpired, you want to show him, it's like, yo, we're going to be serious. We need to take this to the next level. So I think it's an overpay for a safety, especially an area that I know Pete Carroll has emphasized with the defense, but I just feel like I don't know. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I just don't necessarily know if I would have paid him that much. But maybe you had to because talks were stalling. I think you would have lost him, and that would have looked really bad if you didn't overpay. If it would have looked bad if you did lose him because you overpaid for him. So I don't necessarily like the signing. Seahawks are my second favorite team, but I think they were kind of like stuck because it would have looked bad if they didn't re-sign him. So Jurg, I'm gonna go to you first. What do you think about the signing and basically everything else I just said?
So the full contract details, it's a 4-year, $72 million extension with a $20 million signing bonus and $38 million guaranteed, which of course making him the highest paid safety in the NFL. Now, with Adams himself, obviously it was a steep price that they had to pay to get him with trading 2 first-round picks, another mid-round pick for him. In that situation, like when you give up that much for a player, you have to re-sign him. And that player then has some leverage to where it's like, look, you gave up this much for me, you gotta pay me to keep me. So that was part of the reason, and it is not the first time it's happened. You could point to a bunch of other different kinds of situations where this kind of stuff happens. So this is a tried and true thing that happens. So for it to happen to Seattle here, not necessarily surprising. Now, in regards to the contract in and of itself, I understand the idea of some people are saying it's an overpayment because when you look at Jamal Adams and you think of the fact that this guy, like, yeah, he's a pretty talented player. He's made the Pro Bowl a couple times in his career, but he doesn't get a lot of interceptions. It was a funny thing that I saw on like the NFL meme stuff, to where it's like, oh, he only has 2 career interceptions, yet he's getting paid this much. Um, that's pretty funny. Like people just clowning on Seattle, but here's the thing: you can't just look at football anymore as it's just defensive, left and right end D tackle, like outside linebacker, inside linebacker, and then just the safeties are the safeties, the cornerbacks are the corners, and that's it. The difference of how players are played now and the roles that they have on team defenses is very different. Jamal Adams played in 12 games last season. He had 9.5 sacks for the Seattle Seahawks. Look at that Seahawks defensive line. That does not, like, that says two things. it says, wow, the defensive line talent needs to be improved, but it says the impact Jamal Adams can have on both ends. Because yes, is he the best coverage safety? No, I'm not here to defend that. But here's the thing: safety. Not everyone just plays one specific role anymore. They just don't. Like Jamal Adams is important to causing chaos and havoc for other teams, and he does. Whether you like him or not, whether you think he may be a tad bit overrated or not, like Jamal Adams is a premier defender in this league. He can get to the quarterback. He can help out in coverage here and there. And Seattle looks at it and says, we need to keep this kind of guy because we need to continue this energy. The linebacking core in Seattle is set. As long as Bobby Wagner is there, he's going to rack up his stuff. He's going to do his thing, and he's going to lead the linebacking core. But because the defensive line there is not strong, and it hasn't been strong since the Legion of Boom was a thing, because a lot of people forget the defensive line for those Legion of Boom teams is pretty good. Bennett, Averill, Bruce Irvin would get some sacks. There was talent there. And ever since that, they've really fallen off. And they've had some guys here and there who they'd have a season or two, but then they're done. Like, who's the guy on Kansas City now? Frank Clark. Like, he had one good season in Seattle, and then they wanted to get rid of him. They had to because he was going to price himself out, and ultimately he goes to Kansas City. Like, just stuff like that happens with the Seahawks here. So for them to keep Jamal Adams, he plays a key role in, getting to the quarterback. Yes, he doesn't collect a lot of interceptions, but again, that's just a different thing now. Like, he doesn't play, like we were mentioning, he wanted to be franchise tagged as a linebacker. He doesn't just play safety. That's why. It's like, think of tight ends now. They want to be franchise tagged as wide receivers. Why? Because look at Travis Kelce. He isn't just lined up as a tight end. He gets lined up in the slot on the outside like a receiver. Same thing with some of the other athletic tight ends in the game. So now we look at it defensively. Like, I know it's two different guys, two different personalities, but if Travis Kelce was doing this hypothetically, like, I think we would all agree, okay, this dude is clearly proven it. Like, go get your money. You can't deny Jamal Adams is a top, 4 safety in the game, top 5. Can you name 5 safeties better than him? I personally can't. I don't think there are. So because of that, you need to pay him up there. And like, just fine. So that's why you have to do it, because of what he does to that defense on 2 different levels, but especially the one level where you need. That's why you paid him. That they had to pay him, and ultimately that's how it goes. And again, like, this is just a thing in sports. The next guy up sets the market. Jamal Adams was not going to take less because for the players, he needs to set the market for the next guys coming up. So $72 million, all that money like the money that's guaranteed, a heck of a contract for him to get. Will Seattle regret it? Like, maybe, who knows? But that's not on Jamal Adams. That's the thing. That's on Seattle for giving up everything, for then having to pay him. That you can't blame Jamal Adams for the mistakes that the management makes. If you don't think he's worth it, you shouldn't have done any of this. Clearly you do, and if it doesn't work out, that's on one entity, and that is the Seattle Seahawks, not Jamal Adams. So,
Dame?
Yeah. So I've been a big guy on Jamal Adams. I really think he's a great player, and I always have, even when he was on the Jets, even when he demanded a trade. I always said he was a great player. I kind of compared his situation with the Jets to the Knicks with Porzingis. The only difference being, I actually think Jamal Adams is an absolute superstar. Although I do think he got overpaid. That was the only difference between Jamal Adams and the Porzingis. I just never was sold on Porzingis being this franchise player and superstar. He always has injury problems. He was just very inconsistent. But they both were drama kings. They both said they wanted to stay in New York, and then all of a sudden things got tough and they wanted out. Similar package that both teams got. They headlined by 2 first-round picks. When it comes to Seattle with Jamal Adams, like, they really had no choice with re-signing him. Like, Jamal Adams had all the leverage because, like I said, what they gave up to get him. You never see a safety go for 2 first-round picks plus. I know the 3rd-round pick and Bradley McDougal, the safety the Jets got in the trade as well, weren't really that important, but the Jets did use that 3rd-round pick from Seattle, as well as the Seattle's 1st-round pick to move up and get Elijah Vera Tucker, who's the best guard in the draft. So that was very important for the Jets. Something Seattle could have used because they could have helped protect Russell Wilson, but they decided to use it on Jamal Adams, who really doesn't help Russell Wilson at all. And he's still going to be running around with no protection. His receivers are good, but if he keeps running around, he's going to keep getting hit. He's going to get hurt. His career isn't going to be as long as he wants it to be. As for the contract, like, this is the contract he was going to get. He was going to be the highest paid safety no matter what, because, like Jurg said, he has to set the market for other players. He wasn't going to take anything less because that was the reason he wanted out of the Jets. The Jets didn't want to pay him to be the top safety in the league, so he wanted out. Seattle had to do it. They had no choice. They gave up all these picks. If they didn't re-sign him, they would have basically gave up all these picks for what, a year and a half of Jamal Adams, 2 years. Like, this just, you just can't do that. But like I said, when it comes to Jamal Adams, I think he's an absolute superstar. He's definitely a top 5 safety in the league. At one point, I did think he was the best safety in the league. Maybe that was just my bias when he was a Jet. But guys like Micah Fitzpatrick, I think, are better than him, and a couple other guys. But there's no doubt about it. Jamal Adams is a stud. He plays safety. Although he's not the greatest cover safety, he's a great blitzing safety that, like Jurg said, gets a lot of sacks. I think he broke the record for most sacks for a DB last season, and he played in a limited amount of games. So that just shows you the kind of impact this guy has. You could put him all over the field. You can line him up in man. You can line him up at safety. Linebacker. You line him up on the edge to blitz the quarterback. You could do so many things for a defense. So we'll see what the Seahawks do going forward. But I think this really straps them when it comes to kind of helping Russell Wilson out and giving Russell Wilson the kind of stuff he needs to be successful.
All right. Well, we'll see how this plays out. Seahawks, I don't know. I don't want to spoil our thoughts as to how their season will be, because we have content lined up for the next few weeks in which we will discuss our expectations for teams, standings predictions, all that stuff. So we'll talk about the Seahawks some more. So I think that will do it for this week. As always, Jurg and Dame, bring the goods. No one better than them two, fellas. Phenomenal week this week. Lots to talk about, and I think we delivered. Hopefully stuff will occur next week because, as always, we need content. And Jurg, where can they find us on the socials?
As you all know, and we will continue to push it, you can follow us at SomeWhatSports on Instagram. We are past 70 followers officially. 71, boys. We're growing. We're getting there.
Nice.
But, we get there little by little, and we are very appreciative of everyone that does follow us. And, when it comes to the episodes, subscribe to the channel on YouTube, which is Somewhat Space and then Sports, because got to make sure you enter it right, or else YouTube ain't gonna find it, sadly, sometimes. So make sure you do that. Listen to the podcast. Like I said, like I was gonna say, comment, share the video. Guys, share it with your friends, your parents, your cousins, uncles, your brother's fiance, your nephews, nieces, whoever you want to share it with them. Let's get these numbers up because we want to continue to do this kind of stuff, and we want to expand and keep on going. Speaking of which, the articles we've done so far have been good. More will be coming out pretty soon once the ideas are put down. I'd say written on paper. We don't write on paper anymore, obviously, because it's online. But the Somewhat Sports WordPress is also a thing where you could read what we've done so far. You have a baseball expert in Dame, the hockey guy, myself, and Chris, who he loves talking basketball. Dame, of course, as well. Like, I'm sure we got stuff from him coming soon. It's just continued growth, guys. But we're very appreciative of it. Those of you that supported us so far, that view the videos, we really do appreciate it all. And hey, keep it coming, and we're going to keep doing this for a while, and hopefully do this for a long, long time.
Beautifully said, as always, Jurg. And yeah, that will do it for this week. And until next time, peace.